All right, this is a graphic of this roadmap. Starts on the bottom left, and you can see the first stage of these first three steps on the bottom. It's called the decide or confirm stage. And so the first topic you see there is why Mexico, or why Lake Chapala area. And that is not, the idea, this is what we're going to get into this evening, is that topic is important because if you're not 100% sure, or you're waffling, you're not quite sure this is it, then the rest of it will somewhat be undermined by that uncertainty. So I think it's very important from a kind of decision-making point of view that you're very clear about your reasons for moving here, and also that you're prepared for what might come up that may not be exactly as you had thought. So that requires some, some confidence in your move. The second step is the meeting, is that you can meet certain requirements. And in this area, we'll talk about not just financial, but also personal, psychological, physical requirements that I think is important for you to actually kind of check off that you meet those, and that, yeah, this is good for you, good to go. Third major step here is money matters. And that'll be everything under the sun on money, from banking to looking at cost of living, to accessing your money, to managing money in Mexico, how to use an ATM, etc. So again, each of these topics houses a number of different subject matters. And I want to invite you to send me questions as we approach each of these different topics. And by the way, at the end of each session, I'll kind of give you a heads up on, the next topic, so you can be prepared for what's coming, and also think about what questions you might have and want to get resolved. All right, moving up to the second phase, that's the learning the essentials phase, where our first step is to look at the details of finding a home. So finding a home means either renting something or buying something, or it can be kind of a combination, renting with an eye to buy. And this is a big area, obviously, because you need a home to stay in. And things are changing all the time. We're in kind of an unusual period where the opening up kind of post-pandemic is creating probably a bit of a rush of people here. I believe that's happening now, and likely will happen for the next year. After people had put travel on hold for a couple of years, we're probably going to see a bit of a pent-up demand coming through. But we'll answer your questions there. We'll have a guest speaker on that as well to walk you through the details of, like, the neighborhoods, how do you buy a house, what you look out for, and then on the renting side, how do you go about renting, what are the special things, how is renting different than it is north of the border. And then our next step of the 9 is the lifestyle design. Here's where you'll kind of take what you've known already, or that we've shared with you about what will your daily life or your weekly life look like if you were to be living at Lakeside. What kind of clubs or associations might you want to join, the sports, what's available here, and what neighborhoods would you want to live on. Lifestyle design might also include, do you want to be in a gated community or live in an individual house, or inside or outside of town? And then also would include things like transportation. As we get into the last step on the learning the essentials, we'll be talking in depth on the health and medical side. And the medical system here in Mexico is pretty good. It's pretty high level quality. At the same time, there are some kind of almost startling differences between how things work here in Mexico versus US or Canada. And then, of course, important is the insurance part. So especially for people from the US, that's a very key issue. In fact, sometimes it's the reason why people move here, is because they can't afford to pay for their insurance north of the border. In Canada, it's a little different in that some people might start coming part-time and still stay part of the Canadian medical system, which essentially allows them to go right back into it. Or if they decide to move here permanently, then they also have to look at buying insurance. And that's the topics that we'll cover in that step. Then we go on to phase 3, which is the actual move to Mexico. And that's in 3 parts again. The first one being immigrating here. And immigrating will include, what are your options? What's the process? again, given the current times, you know, what's the current situation? And there are some kind of changes that have occurred just in the last month that you may have already heard of that are making it a little bit challenging for, say, tourists to come down. Used to be you just got rubber stamped 180 days every time you came to Mexico. Now they are looking at that much more closely, and you don't have a clear plan that's backed up, then you might be given a shorter period of time to stay here. So it's always a good idea to have your eye on moving towards becoming a resident of Mexico, either a temporary or permanent resident. That's what we'll do in that section. That will include, what about my pets? You know, how do those, what do I have to do to have them come in? And then finally, in the moving process, is what do you bring? You know, should I do a few suitcases and sell everything? Should I keep my house back in Canada or the United States and rent it, and then rent here for a while? Should I, you know, et cetera. So the moving process, and what about the actual immigration aspects of moving stuff here? That, you know, how do I avoid duties on things? So that's what we're going to cover in that particular step. And then finally, we get into the lifestyle launch pad, and that is essentially, as you arrive, what are you going to do? Like, where will you get your, you know, how would you get your groceries? You know, what clubs and associations are you going to do? What about Spanish? Should you take up Spanish? What are the options in that world? So it's basically, once you get here, the first month of setting up your life. And that is some things you can start doing before you get here, but much of it is kind of the launch pad upon arrival. That now you have, you've planned it out, and now it's time to implement it. And in that area, you might use some other people to do some tours of different areas if you're still looking for a house, or it might be that you want to join certain clubs. There's also the Lake Chapala Society we'll talk about. So that will get us to the bottom line, which is at the end, we have covered off everything I think you need to think about in order to actually make the move here. Now, there is a realm of information that we won't cover, and that is what you can find out once you're here. For instance, you know, which restaurant should I go to, you know, or which ones should I avoid? You know, you don't really need to know that information to move here. So we're going to skip over some of the information that we may have covered or you may have heard in other areas. This is focused on making it happen. And in that regard, we are working on helping you develop your own customized action plan or your roadmap. Okay, step number one is in terms of phase one, which is the decide or confirm phase. The first step was answering why Mexico. Now, we could also say why Lake Chapala if this is the area that you're most likely coming to. And I think it's important to know your reasons, your personal reasons. You probably read a number of articles that say, here are the top 10 reasons why people do move here, or here are the things I like about this or I don't like about it. But it's important for you to actually be clear about your own reasons for why would you undertake such a big project. And that will help you be clear as if you run into obstacles, and there's always obstacles along the way, that kind of gives you the impetus to keep going. So I think you should have those reasons, you know, clear and big and in your own words. And I think you should list them. I'm recommending you list all the reasons that you think this kind of move might be something you want to do, and then rank them into order of importance. Now, if you're moving with a partner or a spouse, or in this case, I think there's one person moving with an adult child, I would recommend you do this separately and then compare notes and have a discussion about that, because it's not likely you'll have exactly the same reasons. Not that that necessarily creates any problems, but better to actually explore that before you get here. All right, so that's the key thing. Now, you could also ask, you know, why wouldn't you want to move to Lakeside? There's incredible pictures that I'm sure you've seen of the Lake Chapala area. The lake is gorgeous. I'm not going to actually delve into the details of how long and deep the lake is, but we will have resources that get into that detail if you want, that will be on the program web pages as resources. But it's a gorgeous area. The beauty of the area is outstanding. The amazing culture and colors are what really excite me when I am away and I come back. It's like, you kind of forget how much you miss the culture and the colors, in my opinion. Some examples, a pelican. There's, believe it or not, quite a lot of pelicans at Lake Chapala. They make a migration mostly up to the US and into Canada from here. So we often kind of are timing when the pelicans are going to arrive and when they're going to leave. And you can see large lines of them in the sky at different times of the year coming and going. It's really interesting. A lot of them hang out, well, you'll see them right in the lake, but there's quite a concentration of them on the south side of Lake Chapala. Most of the towns, or almost all the towns that people move to, as far as living here, are on the north shore, but there are still quite a few, much more Mexican communities on the south shore, and that's also where, for some reason, the pelicans, perhaps the original snowbirds, will hang out here at the lake. On the right, this is a picture of the town of Chapala on one end of, well, not the end, but on one part of Lake Chapala, gorgeous city, quite a bit larger than Ajijic, the main kind of gringo town. And Ajijic itself is larger than the other several towns that border along the northern shore of Lake Chapala, all of which are possible locations for renting or buying. So I came across an article, actually, I'm sorry, it was 20 reasons, not 25, to not retire in Lake Chapala. And I just pulled out a few of these from this, it's a humorous blog post by somebody by the name of John Commando. And I've put this post, I've actually put the entire post on the resource area of this program's site, so you'll be able to read it in detail. It's somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but actually a lot of the reasons are quite real, and I think you might enjoy reading through it. Here are a few of them. 7 is that you don't want to move here because you like paying $60, $100 US an hour for house cleaners and gardeners. Now, typically you'll get away with a house cleaner over 4 hours, let's say, at a price of about $15 US or less. And that's it's 4 hours, pretty much, in other words, cleaning your house. And then pretty much everybody does wind up hiring a home cleaner because it's so affordable. It does provide employment, and it's a neat way to interact with a Mexican who eventually you can kind of practice your bad Spanish on, and you can watch them laugh about that. Same idea with gardeners. Most people will hire a gardener unless you're really into it yourself. They're just incredible, and stuff grows pretty fast here, so it's always a good idea to have somebody hired for that. Also, very inexpensive. Number 8, you like shoveling snow, raking leaves, or cutting the grass. That's why you wouldn't move. Well, there are some yards here, but again, for the most part, the gardener does it. So it's you probably would leave that behind, especially the snow part. This is number 9, kind of tongue-in-cheek, that you like being used by your children as a babysitter or a cook or a house cleaner. Now, that brings up a real issue, which I think has to be resolved. And we'll talk about this in the next session in a couple of days. And that is, what about your extended family? What do they think about this? And what's your plan as far as continuing to be in touch, if in fact you are in touch with your extended family? So I think it's an important issue that has been a rebound factor for some people when they moved here. They thought their family would come visit them, but they were too busy and they never could come, so they just missed them too much. And so it's something to think about. And while there is Zoom and Skype, etc., it's not quite the same as being there, and you may or may not want to be going back and forth. So number 10, you'd rather pay your dentist $150 for a teeth cleaning. That's US dollars, as opposed to about $20, which is about right here. Number 11 is you don't like making new friends from around the world and are happy with a shrinking social group that is slowly moving away. And I personally can relate to that. And it's a lot of your friends get too busy, or they move somewhere else, or they're busy with family, or they've moved away. So one thing about living in a community where there's a lot of gringos or expats is that everybody's gone through the same boat. And we have, therefore you have a huge bank of common experiences and concerns. And it makes it very easy to actually meet other people. And that's really, quite an amazing thing, because in fact, the problem here is not meeting people and getting involved with groups, socializing. It's actually limiting your time so you have some time to yourself. And that's not a joke. A lot of people seriously will say, you have to schedule your downtime here, because it just kind of will fill up with so many things to do and people to see. And then finally, we'll talk to number 12 here. And this is the 7 to 12 of the 20 reasons that he has there, all of which are interesting or humorous. You like cloudy days, rainy or snowy winters, hurricanes or in autumn, or tornadoes in the spring. And again, extreme weather is pretty rare here. We get the occasional very severe rain, but very almost no dramatic weather that is kind of life-changing, like in terms of earthquakes or that kind of thing. So, and of course, we don't really have any snow or sleet or any kind of that stuff. And a hurricane, I've yet to see one in my many years of being around here. There was a tornado, I think, that hit it's kind of a rain spout many years ago. And that was kind of something people talk about, but it was kind of a super rare event anyway. So in more realistic terms, I've been running or helping run this focus program for quite a few years. Every time we start a program, we ask people, just like I asked you on the phone, what is it that makes you think about moving to Mexico? And what are your concerns or questions? So over the years, I've recorded a number, and this is just one page of them, but I've put them on a sheet that's also on your resources, your downloadable resources, which are actual responses from people in their own words. And I actually tried to quote them exactly. And I think it's more interesting than just making up things. These are real people that are just in the process of moving here, why they're doing it. And I think it might help you kind of spark your own thinking about your own reasons. So again, I would suggest that you do this on your own. Take a blank piece of paper. It's actually part of this download. And fill in all the reasons in any order, and then go back over and rank them, and ranking them from 1 being the most important, 2, etc. And then compare that with your partner if you have